Hi, my name is Michelle, and I am walking you through my cancer journey. I have stage 4 colon cancer, and I am not a medical professional. If you have any questions that are medical related, I'm going to encourage you right now to contact your own medical team, okay? About a month ago, I put out my first video, which was an overview of my journey so far. I was diagnosed with colon cancer in late October 2017. So today what I would like to talk about is after the colonoscopy and what led up to the surgery. I had shared with my primary care physician, or PCP, in August of 2017 that I had some bowel changes. And there's a video all about that, and it'll be in the journey playlist below, along with all of the other videos and vlogs that I'll make about this journey. In October of 2017, late October, I had been scheduled to have a colonoscopy. So that's where we're going to pick up today. So I went in that morning at about 8 o'clock. I had one of the first appointments. I had done all of the bowel prep and everything else because they need a clean environment to go and make sure that they're able to see everything that's inside of your colon. So my particular instructions were that my husband would drop me off and that the staff would call when it was time to pick me up, and he would meet us at the lobby door, and then we would come home and everything, would be fine, and we'd just kind of wait for the results or whatever. So after the procedure, the doctor came into the room where I had changed and I was getting ready to go down to the truck. And I said, "Hey, how'd everything go?" He goes, "Oh, it went well." And so I said, "Okay, well, can I go down now and meet with my husband?" And he says, "Well, actually, my staff has called him and he's going to come up here and we're going to sit down and talk about something for a moment." I really wasn't expecting that to be what the doctor was going to say, so I got a little bit concerned. But then I thought, well, I was just under sedation and maybe this is a normal thing and he just wants to make sure that everything's fine. What happened next was that the doctor let us know together that he had seen something that concerned him when he performed the colonoscopy. He further explained that he was going to be sending a sample of what he found in my colon to a lab for a pathology report, and that he had put an urgent status on it so that he could get a result as soon as he possibly could. At that point, we're getting a little more concerned. And I asked, did you see cancer or something? And he said, well, I've been doing this for a long time and I am concerned about what I saw, but let's get the pathology report and let's see what it says. And a couple of days later, the doctor called me. I happened to be just getting off work, and at the time, my husband and I carpooled together because we worked close enough to each other where it didn't make sense to take two cars. So the doctor called right before my husband, JJ, was picking me up from work. And he did confirm that the cells that he had sent for pathology did in fact have cancer in them. And at that point, that was really tough to hear, right? But he said, I think that we're catching it early, and I would really like to, move forward as quickly as possible. So at that point, I thanked him, obviously, for letting me know. And we immediately called our primary care physician and got an appointment set up with him so that we could go over next steps. With that appointment set, probably the hardest thing that I had to do was to share with my mom and other family members, the C word. We had cancer in our family, and it was not easy to talk to my mom about it because, it's scary. You never know what's going to happen. And since it was a weekday, my mom and I talked every day, but we didn't see each other every single day at that point just because, we were working and she was busy as well. So when I called my mom, I said, hey, do you mind if we stop in? And I think that put her on alert right away. So we went and we sat down and we told her that we didn't know all of the particulars, but that I would probably be having surgery sooner rather than later. And then we started, we let my brother and his family know, and my husband's sisters and aunts and uncles on both sides and everything. And at that point, we're moving forward. When we went to the primary physician's office, our primary care physician's office, he asked if we had a surgeon in mind or if any of that had been discussed with the gastroenterologist. And in fact, we did not have a surgeon in mind, and we really hadn't discussed it in detail with a gastroenterologist either. So my primary physician has been in practice for probably 40 years or more. And he knows a lot of the doctors in the area. His whole practice has been in this area the whole time that he's been a doctor. And he's a wonderful man, but he also knows the history of each doctor and, who he would recommend for his patients to do certain things. So he recommended a particular surgeon who specializes in colorectal cancers and breast cancer. And as it turned out, she wasn't in our medical group. So my doctor immediately reached out to the group and made a case for me, stating to them that, she was the best surgeon, in his opinion, to do this type of surgery, and that he would like for them to give permission for her to perform the surgery at the hospital that she regularly works in. So we agreed with, what he was proposing, and he put the request in, and the request was approved. Thank goodness. Thank goodness that request was approved. So we meet with that doctor, I don't know, maybe a week later. It was right at the very end of October when we met with her. And the funny thing is that my first impression of that doctor was she walked in and she was very professional and very just confident, not overly confident, like stuck up, but she had an air of confidence about her. And I really respected that. I wanted the most professional person in my court that I could find. And honestly, if my doctor recommended her, I was totally good with it. It's also important to note that when my doctor advocated for me, that was the first time that I really began realizing that your doctor is your partner in all of this, and that they can be a great, great help. If I hadn't had a doctor who advocated for me, I honestly don't know what would have happened, where I would have ended up for surgery or anything. So I want you all to just take that message with you. If you've got a good partnership with your doctor, you are setting yourself up for major, major success. So when I went to the surgeon's office, my husband went with me, obviously, because, he's my partner, right? And so when we went into her office, she came in, she introduced herself, she sat down across from me, and she started out, by asking me if I understood or if I had been online or looking or anything about colon cancer. And at that point, I really hadn't. Everything was moving very, very quickly. And I wanted to hear from the professionals, what they had to say about it. And because I just didn't know. My mind was just buzzing with the word cancer. So the first thing that she did was she explained my pathology report in detail. And then she went on to show us a diagram of, your bowels and everything. She pointed in the rough area where it had been found in my body. And then she also pulled out some still photos taken during the colonoscopy procedure that I had done. And she explained what the doctor saw and why he was concerned. And she was super, super thorough, which obviously is giving me a lot more confidence that she knows what she's talking about. Okay, so at this point, she says, you know, if you want to proceed with the surgery, we're going to go ahead and start the process of getting approval and scheduling. And she said, I'd like to do it before Thanksgiving, and when we get approval, we'll go ahead and put a date, but let's make a tentative date of November 16th. Now at this point, I'm working with two doctors. I'm working with my primary care physician and I'm working with a surgeon. And those two were doing, their offices, their staff were doing a phenomenal job of staying in touch with my insurance company and staying in touch with the primaries group and getting all of the permissions in order that we needed to get in order. Within, I think, 1 or 2 days, we got full approval to move forward with the surgery. And I'm telling you guys, time flies when you're facing something like this and you're really not sure. Even with all the explanations, there's just a lot of clutter in your mind, right? There's a lot of doubt and worry and concern, and you know, I'm working full time. I've got to tell everybody at work, I mean, my boss at least. And then I had all of that paperwork to get together because I knew that I was going to be off for a couple of months and they needed to make arrangements to have my job covered. So there was just a whirlwind of things going on. And it was kind of a good thing having to do all the paperwork to be off work for a while, because it took my mind off of the diagnosis itself and the concern and worry and unknowns. Now we've got surgery all scheduled. I've got my paperwork in. Another partnership is that somebody from our HR department came down and they spoke to me very candidly about what my options were and pointed me in the best direction ever as far as work goes. So when I talk about partnerships, you also have to have a good partnership with your workplace if you're still working. And having advocates there who can point you in the right direction that's going to work best for your family, which will ultimately make you feel better, is something that is absolutely priceless. And to those people, my hat has always been off to them. They don't have an easy job, and I just can never thank the two ladies who came downstairs to talk to me about what my options were. And they got my paperwork processed like within days. So now we're at a pre-op appointment with the doctor, and it's about 10 days prior to surgery. It just, again, it moves so quickly. It was just amazing. So that appointment was to talk about, you know, preparing for the surgery, what my diet might be like, what to expect from the surgery itself, and then to go over like what kind of diet I would be following and what would be expected of me as a patient and what was going to be provided to me as a patient from the surgeon. Before surgery, I was going to prepare almost like I was having a colonoscopy, but then there were a few more steps. I was told to kind of stop eating nuts and seeds like pretty much that day, and to cut down on caffeinated beverages and colored beverages that had like purple and red. And I kind of go over that for my colonoscopy prep video, so I won't go into great detail here. So I went on a fairly bland diet, no raw vegetables, no nuts, no seeds, I've already said that, little to no red meat, and then just slowly lighten my diet, like until I'm eating more like soups or something. And I ate a lot of like cream of mushroom soup for about a few days, and mashed potatoes and gravy, and I love steamed vegetables, so I ate quite a few steamed vegetables, but I laid off of the cruciferous vegetables and like took the seeds out of my squash before I steamed it, things like that. And then if I was taking any medication, there were medications I was told to avoid or stop. And at the time, I might take one ibuprofen every so often if I had like a light headache or something. So that wasn't a really big deal. I wasn't on any blood thinners or anything like that. No medication for like diabetes or anything. So that part was pretty easy to, comply with. And then I was also given a very, very detailed sheet with instructions on how it would go from day to day leading up to surgery. And then when we left the doctor's office, we also had I had a package with pre-op instructions, and it included a prescription for antibiotics because they're working on your colon, and we knew that she was going to be cutting part of my colon out and then hopefully sewing it back together, but possibly even having a colostomy bag. So at that point, we really had no idea what the future would look like after surgery until the surgery actually happened. So I had a package with a product called, I think it's Hibiclens. And so, like the night before, after you've done all of your colonoscopy, the same prep as you would for colonoscopy, then before you go to bed, you take a shower and you have to put this special soap cleanser on your body. Stand there for like 2 to 5 minutes. They give you a little timer with it and everything, so it makes it easy. But I had all my instructions, I had my marching orders, and then it was time to make sure everybody knew what was going on and everything else. Now, the really cool thing is that my husband, JJ, is really close with his sisters, and one of his sisters offered to come to town and to be with both of us like the day before, just as moral support. And also, and this was like the best thing in my opinion. I was worried that JJ would have a really hard time. I didn't know how long I would be in the hospital. And so she offered to come down and stay here at the house with him while I was in the hospital. And that was truly a huge gift. My brother and his family do not live far from me, nor did my mom. So I had support built in that I had had all my life. And my family is very close to my husband, but there's nothing like your siblings being there for you, because they grew up together and they have a history together and they just have a very special bond. So I was overjoyed when she offered to do that and absolutely took her up on that offer. And I could just see the relief on his face, knowing that she would be here with him and that, she would be here also for our dog, so that when he was at the hospital, the dog wouldn't be worried, because our dog's really intuitive. I think all dogs are very intuitive, and she knew something was going on that wasn't normal. At this point, my sister-in-law was here. I did my prep, and the difference here is that I had to take a pretty strong antibiotic at the same time that I was doing my prep. And if you've taken a strong antibiotic, you know that generally speaking, they recommend that you have food with it, or it could upset your stomach. And I would say that was probably the hardest thing, was that my stomach was really upset. And of course, you're prepping for surgery, so there's just so much stuff you can't do. That was my experience, and yours could be totally different if you in fact have to go and get surgery. I went ahead and I finished the prep. I did all of my cleaning of my torso and my abdomen. And then the next morning we got up at about 5:15 because I had I had to be at the hospital at 6 a.m. So I'm going to go into detail on the next video. I'd like to talk about the actual surgery, because at that point we really didn't know how it was going to go. We didn't know what she would find, and we even didn't know if I was going to come back intact or if I was going to be having to learn how to use the colonoscopy bag. I really want to thank you all for coming along this journey with me. I am breaking it down into smaller bites so that if you're going through something like this, that you kind of have an idea of what I went through. Now, what I went through may be very different from your experience. And again, this is all about partnerships with your doctor, with your medical team, the surgeon, everybody, the insurance company. Everybody becomes your partner at that point. a big part of why I'm doing these videos for you to talk about colon cancer. Number one is to raise awareness. Number two is to let you know that if you have any change in your bowel habits, it could be constipation, it could be completely the opposite. You could have no control over your bowels. You might have to go more frequently. The shape, the color, everything in your bowels may change. But again, everybody's symptoms are a little bit different. And if you have a family history, you know, that could play into it. So I appreciate you coming by. I appreciate all of the comments, and there are questions that you're going to ask me, and in some cases I can tell you my experience, but if you have any issues like this, I highly encourage you to call your doctor immediately. And if you're not comfortable with the doctor or your medical team, please find a team that you are comfortable with. If your gut is telling you that something's wrong, you're not getting the care that you feel like you need, then go get a second opinion. Go find a new doctor. You know, there's a lot you can do to advocate for yourself, and I am a huge proponent of advocating for yourself. Surround yourself with people who will advocate for you and who will explain everything in detail to you. It's very important that you understand, because this is your life. This is your life. So let's keep living with stage 4 colon cancer. Let's keep living with stage 4 colon cancer. I am not going to give up, and I don't want you to give up. So let's keep on moving. Thanks again for coming by, and I'll probably be dropping another vlog about the surgery in the next 5 or 6 days.